Hello friends, welcome back to the Tech West. This tutorial or this video, we are going to explain test container library. We, and we will explore this end to end. What are the different APIs test container is providing, and why test container is. Uh, and agenda of this course is that to provide you end to end the test container library and good exposure to test container, the Spring Boot and JVM level test unit framework, such as Junit, Spock, or kind of. So, what's the prerequisite for our course is definitely the Docker. How to install Docker in your local machine and find the setup video I have created on my channel. I'll add that in description. That link in. Then you need a JDK. Then either of the tool Maven or Gradle because we are to create Spring Boot. And as I mentioned, test container is a Java library which support any JVM-based test framework. It's JUnit, Spock. So we'll check introduction. We'll have some test container features, why test container is required. Then we'll set up the test container, create some containers for our demo, MySQL and RabbitMQ, how we can do the integration testing and sample example. Then we will play with the test container APIs. What are the different options are there? We'll do this practically with one of the example, and then we will check the test container best practices, and at the end if we have anything, just check a frequently asked questions. So this is the I mean the setup for our today this video. We will check test container, and once you will go through this video you'll feel more confident, and from 0 to as I usually a title, so you'll feel confident, and then you can explore by yourself using the official test container library as well. So these are the things. Let me just I'll give you the test container official website. We'll go the test container of tech from you and for the test container. So I'm using the VS Code editor to create to handle this. And what are the snippet we'll try? We'll try with that VS Code only. But if you are found with any another ID, Eclipse, IntelliJ, or anything, you can use that one. So let's start. This is the testcontainers.org, which is the official site by test container, and it's actually really the good demonstration. Uh, they have provided few snippets, and they have actually providing very good documentation as that you can explore. So why test container actually? So if you look right in today's world, we have on day-to-day basis containerized applications or cloud native, cloud agnostic applications are developing day-to-day, and it's industry buzzword. So let's see you have 100 microservices in your applications, okay? And if you wanted to do unit testing, you can do that particular service. But if you wanted to have a integration testing, how you will do? Either if you have HTTP API, then you will use the REST template, you mock the object, and using mocking you can achieve that one. But when you create a mock, or let's say you have the database like a MySQL database, so what you are doing exactly, so you are trying to make the thing is that actually you are just mocking the object, okay, or you are creating the in-memory database and then you are doing the validation. But is it the actual MySQL database? No. So nowadays you are using Kubernetes, so everything is containerized now, whether your database or any microservice. How you will do that integration testing? So for that, you can use the Docker API, definitely, right? Docker is provided the API, okay? API where when you say the Docker get or Docker pull the image or Docker run, or when you fire any command on your containers, so Docker client is using the internal API to make a call to the Docker host and do that activity. Similarly, on the similar front, test container also did the same thing. They are using the Docker container, okay, and sorry, they are using the Docker API, and achieving this for us. So we no need to, as a Java developer, we no need to worry about which Docker API you have to use. So someone already developed that library, you have to just reuse it. So that's the beauty about test container. So you can have any kind of a container, whether it's your database, MySQL, Oracle, or anything. You are able to integrate that with the, or you can do the integration testing with the help of test container. So if you look, what are the different type of models it is providing, and another feature which I really love, which distinguish the test container, is that you no need to add the bulk as a dependency to your project. Even though it's test scope, you no need to worry, because let's say you are using MySQL, so you can just go ahead and use only MySQL related dependency. You no need to worry, add all the like a database model. Okay, that's not the case here. So whatever the model is required, you can just import that, or you can just add that dependency in your project, and you're happy to go ahead. Okay, it's not only supporting database, but different like a Kafka module, HiveMQ module, gcloud, Kafka containers, local stack, mock server, Nginx, Apache Pulsar. And so if your container or your technology's container is not available in this model, that is also not the case. Go ahead and use the generic container, and you can achieve your integration testing with that. Let's say you have developed your microservices A and B. These microservices, you wanted to do the integration testing. This is also the container image, and B is also container. So you can achieve that by with the help of a generic container. We'll see when we look for the example, when we start creating our example with that. So this is about the test container. Official definition, you can check test container is a Java library that support test unit, Java unit, and providing lightweight throwaway instances of a common database. So any kind of like a Selenium web browser up to anything. Few things it is you can achieve, like data access layer integration testing, as I have mentioned, MySQL, Postgre, or any kind of a relational or NoSQL database. Application integration testing you can achieve because it is providing the integration testing between two things. Okay, it can help you to integrate with database, your messaging queue, or any web server front end or back end. UI and acceptance testing, UI testing, let's say you have achieved with the Selenium, and you can call your API, or you have to call the certain commands you want to execute on different container with the hub TLS. You can do that as well, and it is providing more. We will check few features as well while we are looking for the example. So how test container is the best, which I have mentioned, it has distributed. You have one core library, and you can, this is the core library which is required, which is having a generic containers and specific modules. Now let's say MySQL module or SQL Server module or Kafka module, you can use those based on your requirement. You can achieve manage multiple version container dependency. You can use bomb as well. Whoever is Maven bomb, they can understand like bill of material, so it's like a parent, or you can import this as a bomb. So this version is applicable for whatever the child dependencies within this bomb. So let's go ahead and first create the our project. Okay, you can go to the start.spring.io, or as I have mentioned, we can create the project using our beautiful VS editor as well. So for that, if you wanted to use VS Code editor, you have to install few extensions to support a Spring project. So you can create a Spring as project from here as well. So I have created a separate video on that, how to install and how to create a project. You have to install this one. So I have already installed these things on my local machine. So I'll go ahead and create the project. Okay. So how to create a project? You can go ahead and initialize the project. You can choose build tool, either Maven or Gradle. So I'll go ahead and create the project with the Gradle build. Okay, let's see. We can choose the version. I'll go ahead and 7.0 Java. Okay, you can specify your group ID. Content text container and example jar. You can select Java version. And if you look here, this is the best feature, last use dependencies. So MySQL, Spring for RabbitMQ, Spring Data JPA, Web and Test Container. So I have created last time one of the demo for one of the my blog. So I'll reuse the same dependencies. If in case any dependencies is required, I'll add that one. So these 4 dependencies will use. Okay. So it will ask me where I can save this project. So I'll go ahead and save it on my desktop for the time being. The folder. It will download the zip and let's open it. Okay. Save the you make to test container. Save them. Save it. Okay. Test.txt. It allow me to think. So we have our project ready. If you look here, this is downloaded. It contains two Maven, okay, Gradle project. There we have. Let's open the build.gradle. So if you look here, plugin. This for now. This is specific Gradle group version. And the beauty is here. Dependencies. If you look here, implementation. Okay, it has added dependencies. Okay, Rabbit test, MySQL test container, RabbitMQ test container. Okay, and as usually Junit Jupyter or Junit 5 dependency, and MySQL connected connect to the MySQL database. Okay, so these are the things which are required for us. These are already added. In case anything is required, we'll add those. And if you look here, imported the Maven bomb container bomb test implementation. Use implementation. It's in Maven terms, it's like a test scope. So these are the things. Let's go ahead and check our Spring project. I think it is downloading the dependence. Stop terminal. We can see terminal. Coming back, not yet loaded, so it will take some time to dependence. Okay. Meanwhile, we'll try to build our classes. Let's say, okay. So we'll create one DTO. I have the employee database. Okay. Let's create the employee DTO for the time being. For the entity, you say it will create a class for me. Let's create it. Now, meanwhile, I'll launch my Docker from my desktop and see how we can first run. Stop. Stop. One or text file. One part. Stop. The file name. Okay. So we have covered features. Set up the container first. Okay. Since it's that container login field, close it, no issue. So I'll add in the description how to spin up and set up the RabbitMQ in local and MySQL. So I have already downloaded these dependencies in my local. So as images, so I'll spin up these two containers. I have MySQL, which is my MySQL database for my local. Then I'll spin the RabbitMQ, which is another. We have the messaging queue container, and then we'll have this my PHP admin, which is providing a UI to access our MySQL database, or you can play with the with the help of our terminals or any CMD tool as well. So let me minimize this one, check for the check the logs. Oh, it's running. We'll wait for a couple of minutes and then check here. Projects are imported into the good one. Okay, it will show the Java project. Should be come here. Check few that it will be to the code. So first we will see we can create the employee database. So we have the employee database. We'll use that one. Create first the employee ID. I will just choose few names so that that will be the easy for us to demonstrate. So we'll have very limited feature because as part of it, this code we are not interested to explore. I mean, demonstrate how to write down the Spring code or anything that you can achieve, or you can look for the other videos as well. This video will see how we can use the test container. So I'll just try to copy and paste the snippet which I have already with me so that we can save our time. Then we'll have our definitely the DAO layer, which is interacting with our this guy to let me. So in this DAO layer, we'll have the code which is helping us to select the data from our database and put it here. So show like this. Okay, fix, I can fix. Okay, to employee sims it is package. Let me classes again. So this looks good. Now let's see. I think no. Let's see. The declared package does not match the package. Okay, let's move it. Seems we have created outside the package. Okay, so this looks good. So what we did here actually, if you look here, we have just created written on the JDBC template with the help of JDBC template. We are saying select the employee ID, first name and last name from the employee table, and we are mapping this our class employee have created here. This is the detail. Okay, till now I think you guys are clear. So let's go ahead and create one more class, which is our employee control. Okay. So that controller, which is like a our what we can say, our REST controller. Okay. So this REST controller, we just have one single method helping us to go ahead and expose the API. So I'll just add employee DAO, which is a say this controller. So if you see here this controller, then we'll require our DAO. This looks good. Then we'll have method which is helping us to do the get map. These two things, see, applies. And so then see, then we will return the same message as we that that we will like get the list from the now layer. So let's this few we need. It's okay. Then we will switch see. Okay, create one logger, which is help us to scenario. Then this much is fine. Okay. If you go here and check, it has provided a. So let's run it first. Once it will run, we'll check whether it is allowing us to and whether it's connected. So it started. So it is up. Check. Okay. Okay. Suitable driver and things. One thing we have missed that we have is don't have any properties as such. Whatever we have. Update few properties. So it's my local host. Or username and password. Password you can provide if you any enterprise you can mention encrypted. This is the. Let's run one more time. Now it will work. Then we will hit our server. So meanwhile, we will add our RabbitMQ properties as well. Those are required for. Uh, Look here, we have mentioned the RabbitMQ host, port number, username, password, and the queue name, where we are actually are sending the messages to RabbitMQ. These are the properties required for our RabbitMQ. Then go ahead and we will create in our REST controller, we'll add one more library helping us to send the notification to that employee whenever something happen. Okay, so that way that employee come to know that hey, I got the message and this message is, let's say, the hello world, any message in our controller. Okay, see here we have, then we need to create a one queue sender helping us as a component, help us to map or send the messages to our particular queue. Okay, so we'll write down one sender message which help us to get the or send the messages to this particular project or this particular queue. Let me bit expand this, create the. Okay, so in queue center is nothing but the our component which is helping us to send the message and connect a particular. So we'll do this one with the help of queue as inbuilt queue function. Connect that over to the queue, and then RabbitMQ template will help us send particular whatever the message we send. So these are the two things we have achieved. Then we have to do the configuration as well for that container for that particular queue. We'll add that as well. The class JVM here. This one. Okay. So this is our nothing but the class. Okay, the class which is Let me add the snippet and configure that one. Help me. This queue name which we have mentioned here. This is the property. So it will take from. So here we have created the bin, and we have to add this make a connection to this queue and send the message. Let's go ahead and okay. And for demonstration, we will add one consumer just for our verification whether it is consuming message or not. I'll send a so better you can create a separate package, but for the demonstration I just my package to create queue create consumer consume the messages from the same queue and log the into our so that it will be for us. Containers are up. See, so I'll try to explain this one. Have the queue consume same queue and logging. That's it. So just for our verification, whatever we send, whether it's sync or not. So first we'll go to our website and we'll check 080 get employees. So whatever in our database, we are able to get all the data. So this is the working API. So this looks good. Now let's see, and send will not work because we have just added that now. Okay, go ahead and check here. Rerun. Then we will check whether send is working properly or not, whether it is able to send or not. And then we'll see how it will. Meanwhile, we can check and 7 RabbitMQ browser. Okay, it's 157. Let's run RabbitMQ. Okay, so if you see here, close for now. Edit connections, everything is running. Have any channels? Check string queue. So we have one queue, which is the demo queue. Is there any connection to this one demo queue? Let's open this one. There is one consumer, which is our consumer. Let's click on the one. See here. So our application is. Let's hit the endpoint. Done and sent. So once that message sent, if you here in our message demo, this is the message or this is the log here. Okay, message and the what are the body we have received, like a demo message. We have received this. Or RabbitMQ is also working. Now let's go ahead and concentrate in on our test. Okay, so this is our RabbitMQ test. Okay, sorry, not only RabbitMQ test, but we have both the tests, RabbitMQ and MySQL integration tests. So let's go ahead and play with our test container library. Okay. Meanwhile, I'll just close few things so that can easily concentration on test content. So let's be. So as we have created our web environment, so I'll add a few parameters here to run the test cases. Okay. And we'll do this spring test. Let's set up context load. We don't want this method. We'll just have one simple method. Say validation like DB can mention by text. This is a this one. Stop our project. So this is our test case. So what we can do here, we can add to wire the dot employee down, isn't it? And then we will see, can call this employee down, insert this, and then we'll say, please go ahead and get the employee list and do the page, isn't it? So that's our generally use case, right? What we will do, get the list from the response or employee down, assert that, isn't it? We'll mention that, assert that, the reason, actual, and the math. Or we can say that assert the list and has a size. So what we will do, instead of this one, go ahead and first code the take a list of employee from, so yeah, so we can say down dot get employees. So this is our DAO method, and from here list we can say list, we're passing size, size. This is the expected output. Let's say 10 or 20 or whatever the size is for employee. We can assert that, right? So let me import first the Java util. Okay, assert that as well. Do I need to? Assertion error. It seems there is change in the assert because it's Java 5, Junit 5, I think. Let's cross check. Guys, let me cross check. Will work. So that saying for deprecated. So it's a deprecated one, not an issue we can use for our example. So that way we can assert this one. So I think it will fail, definitely. We are not sure, but we can. So it will show us correct or okay. Check. See how it will go. Failed, so we know about it. Unresolved assert is failing. Didn't run per. Then we'll see. Total 18. So I'll just update for the set that in static so that it should work. That imported. Okay, so has size as well. Test that to add everything is there. Context Spring Boot test RabbitMQ. So this is the one. You run here, work fine, and it will to you. So this is looking good as a test case. Let's wait for test case to run. Then we'll go ahead. This is achieved, but if you wanted to play with the actual data, whether few records are there or not, or any relationship you wanted to verify, so in that case you need to create the test container. So how you can create the test container? You can go ahead and use the test container. So if you look here in our build.gradle, we have added uh, MySQL container, right? So we'll create that MySQL container first the project, and then see how we can. So let's close few things we don't. How we sender we don't control. So let's play with the now the test container. So for the time being, I'll just create private SQL container to see. You can create a different type of a test container as well. Only create R2 DBCD, which is like a reactive DB connections, or you can create your own container. So SQL container, see SQL container. Then we will see SQL. Here our it is taking a Docker image name or string Docker image name. So this will take just as it's mentioned SQL. Yes, the tag. So if you don't know the how Docker, what is the tag, what is the image I have developed course, you can check that out. And definitely if you come across my test container course, that means you are definitely aware about, I assume that you're definitely aware about the uh, Docker. So if you don't provide the tag here, it will automatically take the latest one, or you can mention what are the version of the validation. So whatever you are using for your project to do the connectivity, you can use same version, so better you will get the things. So I'll just minimize this side. Okay, so this will create the MySQL container, and once you will start this container, say here MySQL dot start, it will start the container. Meanwhile, we'll just check, these are the just 3 containers run. We'll just validation what exactly it will do, okay, and what exactly by this one. So we'll just try to run again. Okay, start. So once it will start, for the first time it will take more time to run the container because it will try to pull the image and run the container. My local, I have already the MySQL tests, so it will not pull the image, it will try to reuse and create the container. Take almost, I think, 30 seconds first time run. Let's wait for some time and then we will see and explore the different. You can mention here other things as well, or you can create the containers with other options as well. First minimize this one so that you will get the better exposure. Let's wait for some time. Meanwhile, we will try to explore this content. Let's take this to the second line so that you feel. Let it be. It's my SQL container object, and we'll see what are the different methods available. So MySQL container container dot, what are the different methods? And add the environment, expose port. You're able to see all the different methods. Well, from container, see how it will creating. See here, it is trying to create the container, different container. Here it's trying the same thing, MySQL container, but with different library and different thing. Test container, session ID. It's trying to create connection, but disconnected. We'll see why it is disconnected. Again, it will try to create a new project. It is failed. It lost. Look here, it is showing problems. MySQL container cannot be resolved or not a field. And but it is trying to create the two containers. If you have look here, so because actually in our container it is trying to make that always it has to use the just the issue with the port and the database username and password. Okay, we'll achieve that by setting up those things in our using the static control. So whenever we have executed this one, this test case, always it is trying to create the new test container. So we don't want, because let's say we have written the 20 test cases. So either you can achieve this using the before method or just setup method, which is available in Junit 5, who once initialize and use for all the test cases, or better you can use the static block. So you can have a one singleton instance of. Okay. Now this looks good. Now let's go ahead and test few concept here. Okay, so it is trying to create the object, but that is not available. And also what we have seen the version. Okay, we have mentioned the latest. Okay, these images are available in our. So let's see how we can add a few more parameters. Okay, so we have our database name as well. So we'll add that database name as well, to which database it has to connect. So that is our demo database, which we have mentioned in our properties file. Okay, you can use that properties and provide that name here as well. Okay, then I'll just try to resolve the few error. Okay, and then we will put the username as well and password, so that whatever the username and password we have used in our project, so we'll use the same thing. Okay, then we'll mention with the name, so you can mention your username. Okay, and your database password. There is one more method with password. You can mention that password as well. So now you have mentioned database name, username, and password. If you see now, so it will try to run your container. Okay, so let me go ahead and mention this guy as static, so that all our issues get resolved, and then we'll start the container. Now let's see how it will start the container and how it will run it. See how it will start. It be MySQL container with tab it is taking, but no worries. Let's go ahead and run it. Again, it will take some time because try to create the different port. It is dynamically creating the object. So why this is creating RYUK as container? Because whenever whatever the resources you have created, this needs to be while closing the connection, this needs to be deleted. That's why test container is creating one container which is running this. So let's wait, run our test cases, run, and then we'll see other different option as well. If you wanted to, if you look, our test cases are executed within the time, and here and go ahead the container, both containers are running. So this is specific to, as I mentioned, test container RYUK is used to uh, close or finish or stop all the container which is created by test container, and below one is created by test container MySQL unit test, this one. So this is our test case is executed properly. Now test container is created as well. So let's say if you wanted to provide some initial script as well, so you can provide that as well. say in a script, and you can mention that in a path as well. Let's say you have startup script. Okay, you wanted to provide that startup script while creating the container. So you have your own schema defined and created, and you want to use that. So you can achieve this one with the help of containers as well. So this is fine for the database container. So you can achieve this, create the similar kind of a container for your Oracle or MySQL or whatever the database you want. So, but to achieve that, you have to go and add the dependency in your or that module in your any build tool, whether it's a Gradle or Maven build tool. Okay, let's see, and we'll create the RabbitMQ container as well and how it is different, and then we'll try to explore the few other options. See here, let me create the RabbitMQ container. See, created. Let's create RabbitMQ new, not loading. Okay, RabbitMQ container will provide the RabbitMQ attachment. So this tag I'm using in my local, so I'll use same thing. Look here, we'll have a different option here. Try to use with admin password, which is a different method, which is not available for your MySQL container. So this admin password is required to RabbitMQ container. This will help us to create that one. Okay, so let's try to explore few other options as well with the RabbitMQ. Similarly, you can create the container for MQ. You can spin up the container and we'll see how it is doing that. So let me first start. So we'll check whether it is creating the container for RabbitMQ or not with the same image. Okay, which is not right now. We haven't used anything specific to RabbitMQ container, but we'll see how it is creating the container. Okay, try to create. Meanwhile, we will check other option as well, how you can provide those. Okay, let's see if you wanted to use the access to host. Okay, so you can mention this value as a so that you can access that host. There are other few options as well. If you look with admin password, you can bind your local source to your destination as well, where you can do the local class path mapping as well, resource mapping. Let's say you have your resource path in your local, let's say slash my data. Okay, on container you have similar path you wanted to bind. So let's say you wanted to bind slash root slash my data, and how you wanted to provide that mode. Okay, let's say that mode is you wanted to provide that mode in read write or read or bind any mode, read only, so you will achieve that mode. Think it's a mode, correct? This one is thing, the different bind mode. Sorry, my bad. Bind mode you can provide this class name bad, and you can mention that different bind mode. Read only, read write. With read only, then it will just read. If you wanted to write something in your inner path and use that bind to your resource path and then do the validation, that is also feasible. Let's say from your local you wanted to check in few logs, so you can map this log with your class path resource, write these logs here, and then again bind these logs to here and use those and do the validation. That is also feasible. If you wanted to achieve something different than this, then you can also do that one, say with access to host token. Okay, that we have saw. Command you can pass, let's say you wanted to pass different command. Okay, to check few things like or try to check the system timestamp or anything else you wanted to achieve, you can do that as well with the help of this library. Okay, coming back, let's wait for some time to run. It's taking time. Load, exception, initialize, container, very big. Okay, equal container type, reference and type, issue soft. Okay, exactly the error. It's correct. Something which we have, maybe some commands also. So command you can pass here using the few things as I mentioned. You can achieve that few the and like you can pass the commands like if you wanted to pass or check the TLS connection or something your command by executing any shell script you can achieve. You can pass this with the command. I'll just try to make this. I commented out. This is also commented out. See. Okay, one more and which is interesting thing I think which is required. Okay, let's say always when you run it is trying to create, but in your local, as I have in my local already MySQL container is running, and if I wanted to reuse the same, then you can mention this method with reuse, and you can pass this as a. So once you mention this, it will try to reuse the existing customer, but this will not work unless and until there is one in your uh, path you have to update one parameter in one of the properties. If you have to machine C drive users, your username, go here, it has created one test container dot test container properties file. You can open that in your studio code, and here you have to update one property, then only it will allow you to read, or else not. That property will not allow you to use the code. So if you look here, I have mentioned that property, and you can configure that property in this three location. If you're using Linux, home, your user, testcontainer.properties, Windows, same location, and for Mac iOS as well. Okay, so what is that property exactly? Okay, we'll see. And think I have that property, or we can check here in our test container library. Reuse container. Okay, see, stopper to reuse the container. It seems it is not bad. Let's one. Just if I go here, creating the container, this one, try to find reuse. Let's check. I have in my notes. Just checking. This container dot reuse enabled true. So this property we have to use test container dot reuse dot enable. Then only what are the with reuse work, or else not. Okay, so then it will try to uh, reuse the existing, or else not. It will just always trying to create a new container, and once test cases are executed, then it will again try to manage those. So let's see, we have used. So let me try, and we'll check whether you look here is trying to create. we'll put one more method here, dot with c running stopping the server. If you look, init process done, it started in DB, and then gradually it will go and validate our test cases. Now this is done, but let's see, there are a few requirements, and if you wanted to use like let's say you wanted to provide few environment variables. Okay, so you can provide this with environment using the map and key. Let's say map of map dot, and you can create the different key value pair, and you can provide that. So let's say you wanted to provide you wanted to provide environment variables like Java home or any kind of variable key value pair, you can provide that with the environment variable. So there are other few parameters as well where you wanted to copy from your file system to container. So you can copy with copy file container. Mountable file you can provide, and you can mount your external file system container as well in case you. There are other few things as well. As I have mentioned, you have microservices A and microservices B, and you wanted to see that you wanted to call a few endpoint. But when you spin up the container, that doesn't mean that container is up and you can directly call the that particular REST method. Let's say you started the container, but container is not up, and well, you want to do the validation. So if you know that particular container is taking a few times to make it up and services up, you can mention that with wait, I think waiting for. You can mention the waiting for strategy. Okay, with the help of waiting for strategy, you can mention wait dot for message or health check, or you can provide that health check endpoint as well. Or if you have the HTTP endpoint, you can mention, or HTTPS endpoint, you can mention. Or if you wanted to listen for a particular port, let's say 8080. Okay, once that is up, you can mention. Or a few log messages. Let's say in log messages you have printed like started or initialized, so you can mention that as well. So let's say for log message, we can say that regex you can provide. Okay, let's say you have mentioned initialized. Okay, you can do that as well. Time you can mention seconds, like one time, two time, whatever the times you have to mention. Or if you have any HTTP method, you can mention that as, let's say dot HTTP or HTTPS connection. Let's say you have to just check, or you wanted to check whether any another endpoint. So when you say the HTTP or HTTPS, whenever from your container 8080 is enabled or 80 is enabled. Okay, so these are the things you can mention. Okay, this is for the waiting. Then you can go ahead and check few things we have checked, like coffee file from container. Other thing is that let's say uh, you have your own container library. Okay, and you wanted to create that container, but that is not available in Mongo. So in that case, you can use the generic container. So let's say we'll use generic container. Okay, container we have mentioned, it's generic type. So maybe you have know about quick clock. Okay, so this quick clock is like a is providing a over 2.0 service from the, I think, Red Hat. Let's say if you have something like that, you can create the that generic container and initialize with your. You can provide like a Docker image as well. Docker image name dot, provide that full path image name. Let's minimize this one. Space. Provide your, okay, some your file name as that version something. That as well. Then we will see the few parameters. Okay, we have mentioned waiting for. Then we'll see wait for wait wait dot stripping. Can mention stripping. That one we can provide the path. Say this one, yeah, auth server. We can mention. Or if you wanted to check the status as well, not only the path. Let's say your path is up, but it is returning the 400 error. How we will say status? You can say status. Okay. Say go as it right something. It will try to hit the endpoint, and whenever that endpoint is returning the 200 code, then it is a success, or else go ahead manage that. For the similarly, there are other methods like, let's say you have with exposed port. Okay, with exposed port you can mention, if you look whenever I'm typing, it is already popping up the definition. So generic container with the set. So set the ports that this container is sent to. Which port you want to expose this container with the port, let's say 8080, or which port you want to expose. You can mention that with expose port this container will expose with this port. Okay, then we have seen with environment, but we'll just achieve this with environment parameter. Okay, very good way. Map dot off, and here you can provide the key value pair. Okay, let's say I'll have a snippet, so I'll just copy instead of waiting for your time. Achieve this. Okay, kind of a thing you can mention. Let's say database password container, you can mention that as well. So these are the things you can. Or we have seen the with command as well, right? Parameter see and pass few commands. If you pass few commands like you wanted to execute like on which, okay, and pass which parameter, say see, you can stop it. More save it, then go whatever you want to do. So this kind of parameters or commands you can also pass with the test container. So these are the few things you can achieve with the containers. Okay. So these are the few parameters you can achieve with the help of this generic container. You can create the test container, that one. Let's say there are a few requirements where you don't want it to wait. Okay, or let's say you want to do the validation for your containers. Okay, you wanted to pass these parameters like what kind of a database URL you want, or you, let's say now you have created the database connection, but now this container you cannot reuse, right? For your project, how you can make a connection to this container from your code unless and until you have test library. So in, if you see here, you test cases, you not provided any resource. The resources file, let's say we have mentioned this URL, but this URL will not be the always the same like your test container URL, isn't it? So you have to provide those test container properties. So how you will provide that one? So the you have to initialize the context, and you can use that one by initializing the properties. Okay, so you wanted to create the connection, then you can provide that. Let's say I'll just comment out, let's create this guy one can mention and use here. So we can use that with the dynamic properties, how we can configure this dynamic properties and add that in the our context. So how we can achieve that? Let's say static class initializer. So we have to initialize that using the section context initializer. So that will help us to initialize that one context. is like a your view. Okay, let me this guy as well. Add implement. So it has one initialize method. Okay, this interface has initialize method implement this guy. Again, provide the properties here. Okay, in the application configure application. So how we can provide those properties from the same container? We can read those properties. Okay. Test property values, which is the Spring utility class, which is helping us to adding the properties can be applied to Spring environment. You see, property source container sources is more one or more test container properties declaration. Go ahead and use the values of. So this will add the properties. Okay. Okay. When you will add, you have to apply that method. So how will apply that method here? To mention apply to which one? To Gradle. Okay, so you have to application context dot environment. So this configurable application context is nothing but this one, application context. Okay, so you have to mention application context dot get, and this will apply based on your environment available. So how you can provide, let's say you have string data source URL, source dot URL. So this is the property name, but you wanted to update this property name, right? So this property name, so you can say plus your MySQL container dot get URL. So it will return the JDBC URL for you. So similarly, you can get like JDBC username as well. Okay, MySQL dot get username. Okay, you can say MySQL container get password, get password, or you can say MySQL container dot get database name we have mentioned. We can when we are setting, you can set this parameter your container as well and get what are the parameters required for you, like a connection to that container. So if you see, you can let's say the database name you have set that database name. Let's say you have data source password, you use that database password as well. Let's comment out, add that as well. So let's say I have database name as well. So you can provide that database name. You can create your own. There are other parameters as well, say which we have. Tap onto this Spring token. Copying, I think I have copied something else. Spring dot data source. Similarly, I can have as Spring, and we can have here. So similarly, you can set the parameters like different parameters like MySQL container container dot get host. So it will return the host of that your container, which is reachable for. Similarly, based on the things you can use, like you can get the port as well, which is like a bind port. Get the ports binding. What is the mapped port? Original port. You can mention what is the original port for map 330. Put this port as well. I think it's teacher or so. I think I have missed. You cannot miss. Okay, so you can mention those, return those. You can reuse those wherever you require this one. Okay, and you can map that one. RabbitMQ that you can map and reuse those. So this is about your test container and few methods which are helpful. There are other methods as well which you can explore, and those are specific to containers as well, which container you are spinning. But I'll try to provide it that containers and methods. So I'll just check if I missed or anything. Container, see, get binds container info. If you wanted to return the container info, it will return in this container ID. You can return. Yeah, it will return like a SHA, which is a hash, not SHA, it is a hash key or hash string. Current container info, database name, dependencies, which kind of a Docker client it is using, image name, everything you can return and you can verify. What are the environments variable are there? Okay, JDBC driver instance, labels, you can check if you're using the Kubernetes base, if you're running your containers, test container on the Kubernetes engine, the label, let's say for your one and product domain you have different label, let's say financial domain you have different, so you can get those labels, find those labels whenever you, so there are plenty of drivers, this much is fine. Yes, there is one more topic which I build the user. Before that we'll just, while creating the test container, first thing is that create as a singleton pattern or singleton pattern. What does that mean? Use the static block and initialize the container. Here, whatever I have tried, we have created the static block that it will get initialized only, or else you can use setup method as well. But that is useful test test suite, right? But let's say in your project you have 100 and more than 200 test cases. How you that initialize in the context static block and have a, or if you have anything to make it as a single out, that you have to make this as a single. Then speed up the start time and have a multiple containers in a one single. Start the container which is for your application. Let's say your application MySQL database, MongoDB, RabbitMQ. You can start all container here in one single block, so that you will save the time, because to spin up one container at least it is taking 20 seconds based on resources available. So that let's say you are having a CI/CD pipeline and your test cases on some CI machine. So that time you can spin up all the containers in one go, or it's like an initial first take first time to later all your test cases will executed within a specific time frame. Then reuse the container as I said, you have to update the property that in your .properties file, and I have mentioned as well how you can you're using the different environment where you can update Windows and macOS. The manual work it that and the run test case in Docker container. So basically, what this means that try to run your all test cases in Dockerized environment so that it will uh, in a background and it will save your time. Run Docker in a Docker, so you can have a Dockering pipeline. All these cases. There is one more interest. I feel interesting. which is like how you can create the container on a fly. Let's say your application is under the development, another microservice. Let's say you have two microservices. Okay, product microservice, a product list of products and on it products, and there is one microservice which is a cart microservice. But let's say this cart microservice not yet developed, not yet developed as in code is there, but the Docker image is not available. So how we will create this application test? So there is one concept on the fly you can create with the help of Docker file if you have the Docker file available, or you can ask your team member to provide that Docker file and use that one. Or if you have the Docker file, you can use that as well. So how you can use that? There is no existing Docker image or create a new Docker image on the fly using a Docker file. You can achieve that you the Docker file as well. Say you have to create the generic container, ASL generic container. See here, I'll just show you. You can create an image from the Docker file. You can mention that Docker file path as well. See here, let's copy snippet so that so you can mention that Docker file, create the Docker file using this piece of it. See, this way you have the Docker file available. Create the Docker file, then this piece of code provide you the Docker file. This image to your generic container, create create the or spin up the test container. Or if you have the Docker file, don't have the Docker file ready. Let's say this snippet code fine if you have the Docker file. But let's say your Docker file is also not ready. Here we have provided the Docker file. But if in case your Docker file is also not ready, then you can create the container. So we can create the container on the fly as well. You can create the container. You see here one as well. This method. This will work. Docker file, then go ahead with Docker file from builder and you can build the Docker file. What is the command you are providing? Let's say from run this command, build this and export. Have the Docker file ready, you can create the container on the fly with this methods. Okay, like an image from Docker file. Provide the parameters. From is like a this which is similar like your Docker file. Let's say you have Docker file with parameters like alpine, right? So this if it have the Docker that is also containers on the fly and create. So let's recap what we have discussed, and for reference you can test container documentation and explore network component and everything how it is communicated. Here's everything provided. Let's say what port you have exposed, or you can uh, put it log consumer as well. Let's say you get those log consumer. What is the log consumer? A log for your another consumer. So it has a plenty of things based on your use case. You can add and explore this document. Really useful. Ask me. It has provided how you can execute here. Let's say Redis server, and you can execute in container. Let's say you want to create one file. So provide that command, touch and create this file. Okay. Execute result. So you can mention container environment variables like API token. So there are you that you can Wanted to mount some volume, that is also feasible. Just need to provide that. Let file system bind like path to file system and bind as a read only. The read only container. But if you wanted to provide, you can mention that read write the content, and you can verify as wait for container. We have seen right with HTTP with log message command, you can see put as well. Okay, or with health status or status code, can achieve that. Wait for that container up like a TLS, or for the health check if you have some health check endpoint, whether it's healthy or not, or some log message. We have seen that. Okay, there are different file systems. Accessing container can access those container log, get log system. You can verify as well what you want. Standard output, standard error, where you want logs. You can stream logs as well, and you can if you want to do those logs, push it into system like Kibana system, LK or Splunk. You can achieve that as well. These are the and based on your case, you can go ahead and use this one. Provide the custom configuration for the locations, provide the image substitution. There are few. This thing with the help of generic container, you can create or spin up any container and do the integration testing. That is the beauty about this container. Okay, and here you have provided the you can integrate with other environments like JVM, Spock, or anything, and mention those, create it. I hope this for you. Let me know if you're using your experience with content. Really, what are the code that code is a library that you can use code that you can use code and play with it. That's it from my side. Have a great day and thanks for watching. Bye bye.